OBS.
Yeah,
ridiculous.
I had never done it before, too. I was just like, I think I could probably figure out how to do this. And next thing you knew, through the entire episode, he had a giant shark behind him, threatening to eat him.
Yep, it was pretty good.
It was, it's what you do. Anyway, I threw us live. I said I would, and I made good on my threat. Don't let anybody say that I don't live up to my end of the deal.
Well, hey, I'll start tweeting and all that fun stuff. How's that?
Yeah, we do that as well.
I prepared it. Boom, done. That's how fast I can do that.
And we will switch to where we're on cams and all that once the show actually kicks off. This is what we call nose picking time. It's where we're live. They can hear us, but you can get anything obscene you need to do out of the way.
Sweet. Wait, the camera's still shared to you guys.
Well, we'll know, but
this is where I flip off John. John, this is for you. Yeah, it's just what we do.
One of the greatest joys in life.
Pretty much.
Also, I will not be on cams that you can see, but I will be on cams that they can see, simply because OBS and Skype don't like to share my webcam, so I have to pick one or the other.
You know what? I should just get you a second cam.
Maybe. I don't even like that I have the one cam, though, so...
That's okay.
Oh, that's right. You can't use it as a source. Yeah.
Could be worse, though. I mean, I actually prefer this much better than when I was broadcasting and would have to do a screen grab of like everybody on Skype, and then anytime I moused over it, everybody would just shift slightly.
Oh yeah, those good times.
Hate that so much.
The one change that they made to OBS that I really like is you can now pull multiple instances of the same window. Like, back when we first started doing this, they would only let you do one at a time, so you'd have to say, like, okay, well, I want Skype, and then I also need this active window over here, and then this part of my desktop here, if you wanted to try and get everybody on cams, because it was just like, no, you can only capture from one instance of Skype. Heaven forbid you have to do it again.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that. I was actually pretty late to streaming, as far as things go, so I always used XSplit.
Yeah, XSplit actually worked out pretty well. It's like super simple to set up, and OBS seems insanely daunting compared to it. But once you actually get OBS kind of down, it is so much better.
Oh, it's smooth. It just uses such little of the computer, but I mean, I get to do all sorts of crazy things in this and build stuff and have things play in and stuff. So I love it.
Yeah, that is cool. I like messing with it. I feel like I haven't tapped into OBS's potential. For a long time, I was an XSplit guy because I didn't know the trick to cropping images in OBS. I thought you had to do it where you would just type in a number. And then someone was like, no, you just hold Alt and click and drag. And that changed my world. I felt like I could see the Matrix at that point.
Well, to be fair, you were also playing the Matrix in the background.
Yeah, but, that's a whole other thing. Okay. Hi, chat room. It's good to see you, all you fine people. Oh, hey. We're about to kick it off here, I think.
Yeah, we're filling up. Well, let me go ahead and get it set up to record the actual show as opposed to just the pre-show. And I'm good. John, Kyle, if you both are good, Kyle, go ahead and kick us off.
I'm good.
Sweet. This is Kyle Fergusson, and you're listening to Azeroth Roundtable.
Nice.
Such a nice voice.
It was so good. And it was so quick and just thrown out there. I wasn't even ready to do the transition to the cams, so that's how you know, because I was caught off guard.
Yeah, it works out really well.
Yeah.
Welcome to Azeroth Roundtable, episode 225. My name is Ben Bumhofer, and with me, as always, is John Jagger. How's it going, John?
Hello, Ben! It is Friday night here in Azeroth, and I am over the moon of Azeroth. Whoa. Excited to be joining you to sort of talk about WoW tonight. We'll talk more about that in a minute. But we have a special guest, my friend, my mentor in Heroes of the Storm, and all-around great guy, Kyle Fergusson. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Hey, Kyle. How's it going?
It's going great. I am so confused to be here, but super excited.
Well, that's cool because this is the show that just confuses other people because we have no idea what we ever talk about. So, yeah, we just have fun. So
like
I'm glad
show.
to hear.
Yeah.
Exactly. In fact, you didn't see it, but I just pulled a penny out of John's ear.
Whoa, I didn't even see it. I didn't even know it was there, which is a whole thing. But Ben, I got to tell you, I feel like we should get this out of the way right up front. We should just make it clear. This episode might end up being a little WoW light. So anybody that's showing up that's thinking you guys are going to talk about 7.3 or patch notes or world firsts or anything like that, maybe next week, but probably not.
John, when do we ever really stick to WoW news anyway?
I know. We wanted to talk to Kyle about a very specific topic, and it does connect a bit to WoW, a bit to MMOs as a genre in general, so I think there could be a lot of that talk coming up. But generally speaking, what I really want to talk about this week is Dungeons and Dragons, which we have played together, Ben, you and I, and I happen to know that Kyle is a DM in Dungeons and Dragons, which made him a perfect guest for this topic.
That works. John, did you know that I'm actually currently in a D&D game, 5th edition?
No.
I play a cleric.
Ooh.
How's that going? Dwarven cleric. Pretty good, except I'm not very good at stealth.
But you're a cleric, so why? So what'd you do to the party then?
Well, I tend to. Well, again, I'm a dwarf. I tend to be very boisterous and kind of charge in, even though I'm a cleric. I don't care if I'm the first person in. I mean, I'm wearing heavy armor. It's cool. So, yeah, when we're trying to sneak up on some guys in a forest, and all of a sudden they just hear shoo, 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 because I'm a dwarf wearing armor.
You're a creature of passion. You can't be held back by your stats, just like real life.
Exactly. But so far, no one's died yet. So, at least I'm fulfilling that part.
I mean, in fact, in original D&D, you would have rolled your stats and then seen what you could have been out of that. You didn't really choose your class at all.
True. Very, very true. Yeah, I don't know. Okay. John, you had a specific way that you wanted to go about the D&D talk, right?
Yeah, I mean, let's kind of go around the round table real quick here, and let's get everybody's credentials all turned in so we can set expectations and understanding of where everybody's at, both a little bit on maybe WoW, MMOs, and D&D in general. So even though we've talked about it plenty of times on the show that there are people who are, I'm sure, like, John, stop talking about it. I'll go ahead. I've been playing WoW since vanilla. I got into MMOs with technically Asheron's Call, but EverQuest was the first. I don't have a ton of D&D experience. I did play when I was really young a lot of, was it Heroes Quest? It was this, like, board game where there were door frames and they had pre-built characters, but it seemed like it was based on Dungeons and Dragons rules, and there was a cool barbarian. They had little mini figures running around.
Yeah, that's been like replicated a lot. What was the most recent one where they had the tiles that connected together?
Oh geez.
Yeah, it was something like that. I can't remember its name, but I loved that game when I was little. I think mostly because I liked the miniatures. I think that was what really drew me in. I was like, you mean I'm this barbarian and he's right here? This is amazing. But I did get into a bit of D&D as I got older. I played a bit of the 4th edition, which is, as I understand, the most loved and respected of editions.
Oh,
and,
of course.
Naturally.
Is thought of very fondly by everybody. In a campaign that Ben DM'd, and I own the 5th edition with the intent of playing it, but it's in the box still.
Do you have like the player manual, or you just got like the starter pack, or what exactly do you have?
Starter pack and the player manual. I think that's where I started.
Okay.
So Ben, why don't you go?
Okay. Well, MMO wise, I got into it by watching my roommate play a whole ton of EverQuest, and I mean, he was even a guide in the program and everything. So I got really super invested into what he was doing, and then finally ended up buying a video card that could run EverQuest, and bought EverQuest and got into it and got up to level 12. And then because of the way the broadband internet was at the time in the town, in the apartment that we were in, we had essentially 2 IP addresses, and another roommate took the IP address that my first roommate wasn't using. And I lost the internet, so I stopped playing EverQuest. I think I got to level 11 or 12. So, got really far in there.
Really experienced the whole breadth of content.
Oh, ever so much.
Yeah.
Then after that, there was Star Wars Galaxies for a bit, Final Fantasy 11, which I've talked about a lot on the show, and then of course World of Warcraft, which I jumped in right around the time that the Isle of Kildanis opened up, and have been going strong there ever since.
Cool.
D&D wise, D&D specifically, I actually didn't start until, way later into my tabletop campaign. I was playing White Wolf games before that. So Vampire and Mage were the two that I was kind of, dabbling around with and having fun in and everything. The funny thing is that I never played a vampire in the Vampire games, because the DM for that was like, hey, you're going to do something else, because I think it'd be cool to have, one of these different types of characters. So I played a Mage. I played actually an Immortal, from Highlander, which that didn't go too well, because the vampires just decided that they wanted to just kill me over and over again, because they thought it was funny that I kept coming back to life.
Oh.
So yeah, that wasn't very fun.
You were like an everlasting gobstopper, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
You were clearly the late one to the party, right? The campaign had been going for a bit. And
Yes.
So they thought if they had a new kid, they could spice up things again.
Yeah, well, and also I was a freshman, they were seniors, so yeah, one of those things. I mean, they didn't hate me. They were my sister's friends, but they actually liked me. I was one of the cool, I was never cool, but I was one of the freshmen who wasn't annoying, so they didn't mind that I was there. They just, it was my first time ever role-playing, so they're like, let's just have fun with them. But then I was a mage running around with vampires in a different campaign that the same DM did and stuff, and then because of that, I ran a vampire game for a couple sessions. It kind of fell apart. And then I think I did one session of D&D as a character. And then after that is when I actually DM'd for John and some of our friends, which I thought it did okay, and, had a lot of fun with it and stuff. And now I'm in a campaign right now where, I play that Dwarf Cleric. So
nice.
Yeah. Kyle, you seem to be kind of a pro on this topic. So what's your background in all of this?
My background in World of Warcraft, anyway, is just Warcraft 3. And that was such a huge game for me because it was voice acted at the time, and I'm dyslexic. So KOTOR, any video game that could read to me, I just loved the heck out of. So then I started playing Dungeons and Dragons. That's its own long story of, sneaking out because my parents didn't want me to play it. Mainly they were concerned that I was going to turn into a big nerd, which I ended up doing anyway. But they were trying to protect me, we kept moving cities, and they wanted me to have good first impressions. And if I'm walking in with Dungeons and Dragons books and, Blizzard guides in my pocket, wasn't the best, but it's who I was. So none of my friends played Warcraft, so it's kind of directly related because I got to steal everything from Warcraft and use it in all my campaigns. So goblin voices, how gnomes talk, cultures, practically entire cities. I got away with a lot. I mean, I was a 15-year-old DM, so, all the synapses haven't lined up yet. From there, go to college, more D&D, keep just building campaigns, but got heavy into raiding in BC, which was really great, and I think the most, perhaps, Dungeons and Dragons that WoW has ever been for me anyway.
Yeah.
Continued to play World of Warcraft still to this day. Stopped at the 5-man Karazhan completion when I fought the alien in the spaceship, and I was sweet. That's the extent, because I enjoy those smaller kind of party engagements where I know every single one of my players and what they can do and who's going to cast what spells and what buffs we have available, and that's why I love Heroes of the Storm so much. And all along that entire time, just more and more D&D campaigns. But ultimately, I've memorized the main stats for 3.0 now and 3.5. Nice. So I just, if I end up in that Futurama white dimension, I'm good to go, as long as I have the dice. But that does mean anytime I play with people, I often go back to 3.5 because 4.0 was ruined a little bit by World of Warcraft, in my opinion. It influenced Dungeons and Dragons and sort of, well, miniature sell and the money there. And then 5.0 is new and they're making their way back. But I've already memorized 3.0 at this point. Let's just play that. I'm ready to go.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's one of the things that actually got the group that I was DMing into D&D is because we were all, WoW players, or at least, we had the similarity or the knowledge of a little bit of playing, like someone's played the trial edition. So, when we're talking about, okay, this is like an encounter power, think of it like you have like a 5-minute cooldown or something like that. And, it worked really well as like kind of a beginner intro to the whole thing. So for that, I'm glad that 4.0 is around. But I mean, digging into and seeing some of the rule sets and everything for 3.5, and especially with 5, now that I'm in there and see how much more complex it is, and also kind of how more traditional it is. I can see where people who've been playing for a long time would just like really not like 4.
Right, and 4 grabbed onto the grid, which was great for video gamers. So now they had physical space with miniatures representing all the characters. And once you have one miniature, you're of course compelled to actually have the miniature for the monster that you're using. So you spend more money, and it's kind of a magic cards kind of system, and that's great for business for Wizards of the Coast. But my problem as a DM running that system was the problem with so many PvP balanced games. I got stun locked on my bosses. I got over debuffed. I had to do some really weird stuff to avoid just blowing up, because if you made the formal announcement of, boom, here comes a bad guy and the door's open and the flames erupt, everyone knows that's the boss. Use your dailies. And it would just become a mess.
Yeah, that's so we had an encounter that I was DMing where I didn't, give enough of an explanation of how I was planning the fight to go. There's like this big dragon boss, and they're supposed to get it into like this like rune on the floor. Is supposed to essentially like freeze it while they can just attack it and things like that. And it didn't play out that way. Our tank just basically stood in front of the dragon and kept attacking it, and it took like like maybe 15 rounds to kill that thing.
It felt like an eternity, and we were getting upset. We were getting a little mad because we had already by that point kind of determined that the key factor that nobody seemed to really be enjoying was the combat. And so it was 15 rounds of people being like, well, I guess I'll use this ability that's going to miss. All right, great. It missed. Next.
Well, to be fair,
person.
You missed more than anybody else.
I know. Believe me, I know.
And that's a classic beginner mistake. You should always put everything into hit just so you're not disappointed when you're making a new character. And I think WoW's helped figure that out too. Even though the health bars are huge and massive and go on forever, at least you hit. And same with now 5.0. In 4.0, dragons, they're tough. They have armor, scales. Your blade deflects off them. What a bummer. In 5.0 now, you hit it. It's just such a tiny hit into such a huge health pool. It equals out.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's the thing. I think there's that whole perception that I want to feel like I did something. I don't want to feel like I spent the 30 minutes it took for everything to go around the horn of players to come back to me so I could miss again and then repeat the process over. But it does lead me into what I think is, I think you kind of nailed it with what you were talking about, Kyle, which is complexity. And MMOs themselves have gone through this, started very complicated, very punishing, very difficult. And WoW came in, and one of the big things it did was simplify it. And now, when you look at vanilla WoW versus WoW now, it's even more simplified. And maybe simplified is a loaded term. Maybe the term is better as refined. We've refined it down to this kind of core bit. But the things that always felt really fun to me, that really reminded me of Dungeons and Dragons in older MMOs, was how complex they were and the weird things I could do. I could be a druid in EverQuest, and I could cast Stinging Swarm on myself. There's no world where I need to cast Stinging Swarm on myself, but it was fun to have a bee effect on me and run through the town screaming, "Ah, bees!" That was fun to me, and so I'm glad it was something I could do. Nowadays, they have like, oh no, that's an attack spell. You're only going to ever use that to attack. Why would you want to cast that on yourself? So, do you think that it has been the lack of complexity that has kind of led us to this kind of more arcadey experience and maybe away from Dungeons and Dragons feeling when you're playing an MMO?
No, I think it's the internet at the end of the day, because what you just said is a really exciting discovery, and players would be stoked to have that for themselves. But instead, the internet exists, and the Reddit post happens, and you read the Reddit post, and now it's not special anymore. So going out and crafting that crazy mythical weapon and walking through town with it, everyone kind of saw it. I mean, Thoughtbot, right? It was archaic. That was Gandalf going down the stairs and through the tombs and, pulling out the old papers that would blow away in an instant because they were out of date.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's very true.
Yeah, I mean, there are some things that still kind of remain that, I wish that we had more of a fun time with. Like you said, like Thoughtbot, Wowhead, everything like that. It breaks down a lot of the mystery, which is something that we've talked about before. And mystery in this is something that's great. And, going into, like, say, a new expansion in either D&D or WoW or something like that, it's, walking into this fresh instance or the dungeon or, something that your DM came up with and not knowing at all what's going to happen. I mean, that's one of the great things about D&D is that, if you think about it, if you've never played before, what a DM is, they're essentially the storyteller. They're the ones who created the world, who are, kind of trying to get you to go along a path. And the players, with, if you have people who are, cooperative, will follow along that path, or at least be creative while they do it. There are people out there who actively just try to break the game because that's their fun and they don't get invited back to my games. But
it's a serious business. You put away your cell phones,
Exactly. And so, you go in, you have fun, you craft this experience together, and it's neat that we're able to do that in, different like MMOs and things like that. But somehow I still think that they need to capture that idea of discovery and everything, just because you don't get that sense of wonder in a video game when, you go and look everything up and see what's going on. Whereas, Kyle, if you're running a game, we walk into a room, you tell us what's going on. We've got no clue what there is. If there's traps, enemies, treasure, if I step on this tile right here, is there going to be a rune that pops out that like teleports me somewhere and everybody needs to find me? I mean, there's like so many different possibilities of what can happen, as opposed to everything that's scripted in a game.
It's tough to compare now too, because those systems have evolved so much. I felt like I achieved that for a time in BC.
Mm-hmm.
During that more localized time, without the sort of spread of the different regions all put together, as a holy priest during that time period who leveled holy with no, side spec, walking into town felt like I was just some healing pimp. It was awesome. I love scrolling through Chat Wrath and just getting invites, and people were like, hey, you're that guy from, I'm going to Shadow Labs, aren't you? I still need my trinket, man.
Oh, I love that. And you know what? Actually, that brings up a good point right there. So, in D&D, obviously your group knows who you are. You're constantly running with them and everything. But, nowadays in WoW, you don't have that sense of community anymore, because we do have the, the LFD tool, LFR and everything like that. So, I mean, if you are the healing pimp on the server, you're known. And all of a sudden, like, if, you're, looking for a group for whatever, just, shouting out in trade or the LFG channel and whatnot. If Kyle shows up in his healing pimp gear and all of a sudden he's like, yeah, I can run with you. Well, he's got a reputation. You're going to be safe because, I mean, look who you got.
And I was very focused on 5-man content and 10-man content because that's what I like. And I think the 40-mans are cute and it's fun to be part of an army. But the reason I play D&D and ultimately became a DM because I love sharing that. And plus, it's the best because you get to always play. Every other player has to take turns. You're always participating. with the game in any MMO, I'm always looking for that new like avatar, second skin, like that person you can be, and then one day have the pin on your chest experience while standing in line at GameStop and go, oh, you're that class, oh, and I'm this class, and we have a connection here on the street.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think, I think that was kind of the crux of what I was trying to figure out with this topic, is because I've certainly had these experiences. I've had them in other MMOs. I've had them in WoW where I'm like, man, this feels like something really special and really unique, and it feels like a real social interaction and gathering. And while I think WoW as a game has gotten better, I'm always thinking about like, yeah, but wouldn't it be cool if we could get back to that? Like I remember one thing we used to do is, and I think I've told this story before, but we used to go into a zone in EverQuest called Blackburrow, and it was this big like ring that overlooked a big pit of gnolls. And if you wanted to, you could shoot an arrow at one on the bridge, and as he made his path up to you to fight you, he would aggro every gnoll in the zone on his way up to you. But it made for this really cool moment where it was like, hey, I'm here, there's a bunch of other people here with me, let's all group up and just have a war with the gnolls. Like, let's just say this is a day where we're going to go in there and we're going to fight and we're going to win. We're going to triumph. We're not going to zone out right here and hide. Like, today's the day we take it to the gnolls. And we would group up, someone would pull, and everybody would get ready. They'd start casting their buffs and they'd start getting ready, and people would be, on the ground meditating, getting ready, and then the door would open and out would come all these gnolls, and you just have all these players go and meet them. And this is something that is essentially happening because of an unintended consequence of the way aggro and pathing works in the game. They didn't sit down and say, hey, we need to design this zone in such a way that people can have really cool gnoll wars because they shot an arrow at a guy on a bridge. But it's something that the players made, the players created, and it created this super fun moment that when I think back to that game, that's a highlight of it. And I try to think of like modern WoW if I have anything like it, and I have such a hard time coming up with moments like that moment as the game is now.
And that makes me think of a question for you both, because when I was at BlizzCon and they announced Warlords of Draenor, that entire announcement was full of D&D talk and references, and showed pictures of them playing on the floor. And they said they were about to become our DMs. And in a way, they did. Warlords of Draenor was very character-focused, particularly on the bad guy side. And you really wanted to beat up each individual enemy. Do you think what was, to you guys, the achievement of their D&D philosophy there? What did they actually infuse in?
Not the best story.
I
Sorry,
think
that was a low blow for Draenor.
I'll say this. I think they achieved it, and I know garrisons in the World of Warcraft universe is a dirty word. Garrison in WoW is a 4-letter word, actually. It's spelled very differently, and it makes people angry. But I actually think the garrisons were kind of that DM moment, because it was a town, and it was a bunch of characters, and they were... The sad part... The part that I wish, you wish they would borrow from BioWare or something, was that none of these characters had personality, really. They were just named NPCs, and you judge them based on how they looked purely. But they were there, and they knew you, and they would do things for you, and you could go and stand at a table and be like, go out, my minions, and do things, and you'd watch them all go marching out of the hall, and it was like, yeah, this feels cool. I feel awesome. And then you realize that you also had no reason to ever leave, and then it turns out it was really boring. And so there were a bunch of downsides, but I think in those early moments, in those early days, as you were building your garrison and getting to know your NPCs and how it worked and all of that, I think that actually did start to scratch that itch maybe a little bit.
Personally, I think that it's more of the rep grinding that you did in Warlords of Draenor that felt more like that. Because, like say, for the Horde side, you had the Blade Spire Fortress or whatever, just kind of finding your way up through that, establishing that as a stronghold, then going and, becoming friends with like the Laughing Skull orcs and everything like that. It really felt like, you were building up that rep and pushing it forward, and, just I don't know. It actually did feel a lot more epic than just, I'm doing fetch quests for these things or whatever. It's like there was more purpose to what you were doing than some of the previous, kind of throwaway quests or rep quests and everything that you would find. And that's something from Warlords of Draenor that I really appreciated. And, having it kind of carry over in, some of the zones in Legion, was cool, but I still didn't feel like that same connection with the people that I was doing things for that I did with in Draenor. And I mean, that felt like really great storytelling. Like, I did have someone saying, okay, well, you see like the initial starting zone to, gosh, I can't even think of the zone now, but the place where the bone mask orc guys are, which I just said their name and I forgot them too, but where you walk in, like, a rock lands right in front of you, and then you're basically being attacked as soon as you walk in, and then you slowly build and gain their trust and everything. And I mean, that's kind of the thing that you're looking at when you have like a good creative DM who is trying to introduce characters to you. You give them purpose, you give them life, and you really build that up so that you care about what you're doing. That's something that I really enjoyed.
Nice. And I accidentally tricked you guys into complimenting a part of Warlord of Draenor.
I was about to say,
I know. Thanks a lot for that.
I was about to say the biggest achievement Kyle has ever done on this show is he got us to compliment Warlords of Draenor.
Well, that's what a good DM does.
Yep.
You're a little manipulative. You get people to open the evil book and try the spell and, get that paladin to fall.
Surprise! Turns out you liked it. But no, I think it did absolutely have its moments. And when I try to put it in that context, I can see things that I really liked about it that I really wish that they would lean a little heavier on. If I had gotten to be able to know the people in my garrison, if the choices had been a little more meaningful than just, do you want to build a mill or do you want to build a smokehouse? Like, what do you want to build?
Yeah.
And it was like, well, is this really a choice? Like, because a lot of things in WoW ultimately reduce down to, I'm going to go to a website, look up what the perks will be, and min-max my decision. And I actually don't mind the idea of going to a website and looking things up. We used Lord of the Rings as an example, so I want to use it again because I think this is a good one. I always felt like if I had to go look up some, like, oh, I saw something interesting in the world, I need to go to the website and look up what that is. I always immediately imagined Gandalf when he's in the library and he's just surrounded by candles. It's just my library happens to be Google, and I'm just like, okay, what's this? Where did this guy get this weapon? What is this weapon? Where is it from?
Past the giant pile of corn.
Yeah.
Go to the weapons section.
And then you come back with knowledge. But I think the problem is that when that knowledge just becomes go here, click this, kill this, do this, and it just becomes a list of easy to check off steps, it loses the magic to it when it becomes, hey, you're going to need other people to do this, and you're going to need to get really invested in it if you want to do it. I think all of a sudden those hurdles and needing to work with other people suddenly make it a little something more than I went to Google and looked up how to get it.
Okay, right. If you're looking at the basic reason why WoW wouldn't work as a DM campaign anymore, it's because the multiverse is too big. You've gone to too many worlds, so you can't localize problems anymore and actually fix anything. But as a video game, it can just keep going, and that's fine because it's not the story of us, the players. We're more just sort of the army.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Plus, I mean, when you look at World of Warcraft too, and I mean, D&D kind of has this issue a little bit, but I mean, they have like such low limits on this that it's not a big deal. But we're level 110, and yeah, the threat that was there when we were level 60, that doesn't really matter anymore. I mean, granted, there's time walking now, but that's an entirely different thing. It doesn't really count. So it's the whole Dragon Ball Z effect. It's like if your character gets too powerful, you have to keep dreaming up these bigger and bigger challenges. And I know that with D&D, the max is level 20?
Right,
and
depending on which edition. But either way, it gets ridiculous. At some point, your character's going to be able to stop time, cast 5 meteors, and then turn on time and drop it on some poor guy.
I hate it when that happens.
It is a little sad, actually. It's kind of like when you're watching those really long run shows and you're like, this person is so horrible. We all know they deserve to die for the story's sake, but I want them to keep Breaking Bad.
Yeah.
Although that was a great ending to that show. I can't think of a better one.
And that's exactly how it should be. He should not raise in the 7 layers of Hades and have to climb his way out, and just so we can keep this campaign going.
Although, now that you said that, I would watch that show. Walter White comes back from the dead, bringing hell with him. And crack.
The thing that I always have wondered, did you ever, Kyle, did you ever get to participate in any of the pre-expansion events, like the Undead Plague before Lich King, or any of those weird, like, typically they didn't announce them, it was just all of a sudden weird things would start happening in the world leading up to an expansion?
Oh, yeah, particularly the pre-Lich King event that everybody hated and I thought was fantastic, but then couldn't I dispel my own disease as a priest, so I kind of got out scot-free?
I think you could. I think you might have been safe.
I probably had a really good time.
Yeah, but I mean, you could always make the choice not to dispel your own disease and just let the world burn a little bit. But I like those events so much, and I've always wondered, and I'm sure that there's someone with a spreadsheet that's like, this is what it would cost, and here's why it would be a bad idea. But I've always loved the idea if WoW had a live team that could just create random chaos in the world whenever they felt like it. And we're given carte blanche to do so. Like, hey, it's the evening of July 14th, and a whole marauding troop of demons is just going to attack Orgrimmar because I'm GM whatever, and I have decided that that's what we're doing tonight, everybody. So get in here and check it out. And I think that unknown, unexpected, and kind of human touch to events would make that I'd never want to log out, because who knows what's going to happen. Like, I think one of the biggest problems with WoW is it's a known quantity almost all the time.
Yeah. Well, I mean, is there any way that we can... Okay, so looking at it now, is there any way that we can actually go about playing WoW, or, you know, having new content coming and everything, where it's not just going to be blasted all over the internet? I mean, data mining happens because things are on the PTR. You know, people share stuff all the time in, you know, Twitter, whatnot, all that fun stuff. So other than just completely, you know, staying away from that yourself from social media, is there any other way that Blizzard could do something about, you know, keeping big events under wrap or something like that, and then just randomly springing it on the world?
Is it up to the responsibility of the players to make those events happen? And how do you encourage them to do so? I mean, wasn't that world PvP in the first place?
Yeah,
in a sense.
I mean,
you have to incentivize, and then it's weird. I don't know. It's tough because in Dungeons and Dragons, you always have infinite death. And yeah, you can always do god calls and make up whatever the heck you want so they survive, so the player can keep being happy and enjoy your game. But at least there's something. And that punishment can be as extreme if you want to cast the evil lightning, your arm rots off. Sweet. Like, what a great punishment.
I kind of like that, actually. And then you just shoot lightning from a stump after that until you do it enough, and then your other arm falls off.
Exactly.
Yeah. Then you don't need gloves as part of your equipment. I mean, how great is that?
Yeah, it goes places. And I think that's the level of creativity that only, you know, having a person directly behind the wheel. Like, I guess let's just ask the blunt question. Do we ever think there's going to be a video game that truly captures the spirit of Dungeons and Dragons?
Not even a D&D game.
Yeah, no, certainly not a D&D game. There's been decent tries at it, but you just can't. It's the kick the king in the balls equation, and you just can't do it. It's too complicated. But that's the ebb and flow of D&D. If a player wants to do that, they can, and the repercussions and the jail time or whatever the heck I come up with is the magic of that interaction. And the real achievement of World of Warcraft is that it's easier to play than D&D.
Mm-hmm.
We are all at home in our separate homes, evenings, weekends, whatever. I've got something in an hour, sure, I can play to the last minute now without doing that drive. And still online hasn't connected D&D enough. It's not there yet. And I don't know if VR could even get it close, or if we actually have like chemicals shooting out of our skin at all times and being in a real room with people is just that magical. It still hasn't achieved it yet.
Yeah, I've actually played some online D&D, and it's been okay. But I mean, just seeing the reactions of everybody else in the room, you're right. There's something about that just, you know, adds that magic and adds that feeling. And it's not even that it's more immersive. It's just, you know, you're pulling the vibe from everybody else in the room. So,
Right.
you know, if I do something incredibly awesome, everyone's, you know, like, oh, that's really neat. That's cool. If I totally, you know, flub up and do a critical failure and, you know, trip or something, everybody laughs at that. You know, it's just one of those things where you feel so much more connected just sitting in the room together. And yeah, I don't know if there's any sort of online experience that can really do that.
But did we achieve that in LAN parties of the past? Is one of my thoughts. And if we just all gotten in a single room and played WoW together, would we achieve that? We probably would be more likely to go fight gnomes.
Yeah.
And make a war happen.
I like that. I can always fight gnomes because, you know.
Oh, gnomes.
Yeah.
I don't know, John, what do you think?
I definitely don't think we can ever truly capture the spirit of it. You know, I think you can say these are the elements we want to capture. And I think you can set goals within it. But you're right. There are levels of triumph that only come from people being able to talk to other people about it. And that's the moment where, you know, you say, I want to do this. And the DM says, that's crazy, but maybe feasible in some way. Okay, you can try it, but you're going to have to roll really high. And then they roll really high. And it's like, well, crap, now I have to make this work. And all of a sudden you have a character who's doing the seemingly impossible, and it's a triumphant moment, and everyone celebrates together. But when you're working within rules where players have to be equal, essentially, because, I mean, do we really want to play an MMO where it's like, oh, you got the character you got. Maybe he sucks. Maybe he's awful. Actually, now I'm saying it, I kind of like the idea of an MMO where you don't get to pick your stats. It's like, maybe you were born genetically really well. You got strong genes. Maybe you were born really not that great, but you can still try. You can still get out there and do it and go for it and maybe be a hero. Like, I kind of actually dig that
Like you
idea.
just pick a class and then roll with it and hope.
Yeah.
Apply yourself as hard as you can.
I'm a bard and my charisma's at a 5.
I have no...
This is
you're
not
gonna
going to
give it
go
your
well.
Yeah, your mom was really complimentary about your songs.
You
don't know yet.
Oh, sweetie, that was the best one ever.
Mom,
Thanks,
I'm gonna be a bard. And then they're just basically the American Idol rejects. It's just nothing good is coming out at all. They're trying.
Well, there's an archetype in D&D that can't work in a video game, and that is the monk. In fact, in recent editions, the monk has been balanced, and it's now wrong, in a sense. The monk is a character who doesn't want to fight. Peace all the time, please no, you know. And then only at the most push moment against the greatest of evils will they even do a punch, but their punches have the power to either blow the entire person apart or, on their choosing, activate their punch and their heart explodes. Like, weeks later, if they want to, like a time bomb. They are so OP, but they're balanced by their neutrality and their need to do good deeds and keep the cosmos going. So if you play a monk wrong, or the DM lets that monk play wrong, it is completely broken. But you manage it with those restrictions, just like a paladin is. An evil paladin kills everybody if he wants. I mean, blackguards is what they become, and Death Knights in World of Warcraft. But their goodness keeps that bloodlust that they could have with those powers in line.
Yeah.
By the way, I just have to mention that Haster in the chat room said that challenge accepted. I shall play a fail bard for my next character.
See, I love the idea of that. And that's the other thing is like it allows for such weird experimentation. You know, you can say I want to play a failed bard. I want to play an evil paladin. I want to try something. I've got this weird archetype in my head that I just want to go for, and I want to see what that's like. And I think even though, because it was everybody's first time kind of learning it and experiencing it, we were sticking very close to guides and things that they were given. I think that's why when we played the game with you as the DM, Ben, I was like, I want to be this like half werewolf man because this seems really crazy to me. And I like the idea that this character gets bloodied and just goes berserk and turns into a half werewolf guy and just starts tearing into people. Like that seems like a really cool thing to me. And it wasn't because this is the ultimate fantasy for me. This is what I aspire to in my day-to-day life. I just let random dogs bite me in the hopes that it works out. It was just like, this sounds super cool on paper. I want to try it and see what this is like. You know, MMOs have that to some degree. I would like to see a rogue. I want to know how a rogue plays. But how a rogue plays is going to be the same for you as it is for me. And the only thing that changes is the narrative within our own heads.
Yeah. And, you know, I have to say that the closest game, or MMO at least, was possibly SWOTOR, because you know you did have your character, but then you can swing either evil or good. And I mean, granted, that's not even close to what we're going for with, you know, the flexibility and storytelling and everything that you want. But you know, it kind of had that a little bit, so it lets you play with at least the aspect of light and dark. You know, John, you were saying that your Sith warrior or whatever is like the darkest of evil things in the world.
I wouldn't say darkest of evil. That's a little extreme. She has a moral code that she feels very strongly about that some might perceive as evil. But the thing about her that's so tricky is that, like, someone will cross her and make her mad and she has no problem cutting him down, but then someone else, she just might let him go. Like, there's a randomness to her that is also disconcerting. Like, she might help a bunch of people one day and it's like, why did you do that? I don't know, I felt like helping them today. Well, but you just murdered 18 people yesterday. Well, they had to die. She's got a method. It's not clear to many people, it's kind of clear to her, but you know, it works. But what I loved about that character and why I get so excited and my eyes light up when I talk about my Sith warrior is that was a case where the fantasy met what my expectation was. Like, here's a game that's voice acted and you're choosing from dialogue trees. And I would see the interaction and in my head I'd be like, okay, this is what the character would say. And then I would hit a button and the character would say exactly what I was thinking. And it was brilliant and it was amazing. And it's why I've had a hard time getting into other characters, because I'm like, okay, this is what the character would say. And I pick the option closest to it and the character says something really dorky and stupid. And I'm like, this is the worst character that ever lived. This character doesn't even know. It just really jived with me. And I really, really loved that character a lot.
And there's something interesting. You mentioned how much we bring to a video game character. I mean, my World of Warcraft character is about as complex as, you know, Metzen could make it at this point, because I've had race changes, faction changes, and that's all in my lore because I'm an alchemist. In my head, that isn't written anywhere, but I love that it exists.
See, you want to talk about not the only person who does it, Ben.
I do it too. I just don't do the race changes as much as you do. In fact, I don't think I ever have.
Well, you know.
I only have one alchemist, though. I mean, that's that, and if you're a mage, those are definitely easy ways to do that race or faction change and everything. Like, I get you on that. But, yeah, no, I've got a whole headcanon and everything that's going on. Like, with my monk right now, you know, she was raised on the Wandering Isle and everything, but she went for the adventure, and now she's, like, you know, trying to be this total Zen figure and be like, hey, guys, let's not fight each other between, like, the Horde and the Alliance. Of course, it's not working because, well, it doesn't happen in this universe, but you know, like that's her goal. That's what she's trying to do, and she's trying to lead the Order to do the same exact kind of thing. Because I mean, it's comprised of both sides.
Have you killed a character of yours in World of Warcraft?
Not yet, but there are some that I don't really play that I could probably kill off.
Well, that's more like the player stopped showing up. I'm talking like they went through so much stuff. Like my poor Tarask is he's gone. He couldn't do more. So I actually play his apprentice now. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. But I wasn't awakened. He went back in time, and it's just too much, man. It was too much for him.
I have killed off characters in my head canon. There's some that didn't make it. One got lucky and got to come back as a Death Knight, but he was the lucky one, I guess. He's not particularly lucky in the context of the story. I'm actually really sad because he was the favorite named character that I ever had. He was an orc named Brig, and I just loved that name for an orc because it's a name that you saw and you always wanted to type it in all caps. And so it just seems so fitting for an orc, but he sadly got killed by the Lich King. He didn't come back from the war. But I do have Brega, his daughter, who has taken up the mantle and has taken his place, and Brega's pretty awesome. I like Brega a lot, but she just doesn't have as cool a name. It's close. I had a hard time letting go, so I was like, yeah, he was an uncreative dad, and he added an A to his name and was like, job's done.
I found a kid. Your name's Breg. Ooh, that's good.
Got it.
I like it.
Moving on. I got to ask you one thing about your headcanon, Kyle, because it's so cool to meet somebody else who has it, because I don't meet a ton of other people that are like, oh, I have a story and a history, and I have to explain when my characters are going through these weird changes and all of that. Do your characters actually participate in the events in the game? So what I mean by that is my characters, because it always would bug me if I was like, yeah, my character canonically killed Arthas, but everybody out there feels like their character canonically killed Arthas. Like, that's something that everybody feels like they did because they all saw it. So in my headcanon, my character is never actually involved with anything you do in actual World of Warcraft while playing. Doesn't do any of the quests, not responsible for any one part of it, because I don't want my experience to be someone else's. Are you on that side, or are you on the side of, no, if I played it, my character did it?
Yeah, no, I've never really addressed the thought, but now that you mention it, just kind of go where I'm needed, priest style, right?
Yeah.
And if that's to go kill the biggest evil in the world, sweet. That's awesome that cosmically I ended up there, but I'm looking at my heal bot, actually, so I'm not really sure I'm even where I am in sometimes.
Yeah, I'm just throwing light around, Oh,
yeah.
I guess Arthas died. Yeah, I kept that guy alive, though. That's cool.
There's things at my feet, run out of it, back to the blue bars.
Exactly.
How did I get here? I don't know, but I got a job to do, and I'm going to do it.
Yeah, summon me. It's cool. All of a sudden,
that's also
like,
because my progression stopped after college for a time period. I stopped serious raiding, so I didn't have that experience, and LFR never gave me that feeling. I have to know everyone if it's a 20-man raid because it's just the strategy of it's too interesting. Yeah. And plus, am I healing my good character, my good player, or my bad player? And I sometimes have to make sacrifices based on my mana. That's a fun choice, and that's what made healing so enjoyable.
Yep, it's one of those things where
not the cosmic choice of choosing who lives and dies, but the strategy of it.
I was gonna say, because recently I had the option of, okay, heal the tank or keep John alive. Tank's more important.
No, I'm your friend. Do you?
Well, so's the tank.
Do you role play when you're in dungeon content?
No, unless it's the first time through. Yes, yeah, because that's always solo. I never do with groups on opening because I like that lone priest feeling.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then everyone's confused in there, and that's really nice. Whereas when you're with friends, you start to metagame really fast, and maybe there's one guy kind of leading the way, but he doesn't want to type all that, so you still get to explore.
Well, what I've learned,
I like that,
and I feel like this comes up a lot on the show. So as I've discovered this and kind of put this together in my head, I was playing my Demon Hunter recently, And I noticed a weird trend when I was going into dungeons with my Demon Hunter. And that was that I played my Demon Hunter differently than I played my Rogue. And it wasn't in that they have different abilities, therefore they have different play styles. It was in my behavior on those characters was different. And now, I haven't taken the Demon Hunter rating, but I have a theory that the Demon Hunter would participate in trash fights. The Rogue... as we've established on this show, I don't always participate in trash fights. I sometimes hide from them and get called out in raid or get raid markers thrown on my head to show where I am to everybody.
Now I have a Healy stream that points directly at you from me. Like, hey guys, look over there. There's where John is.
But I've noticed, and it never clicked to me that some of the things I do in raid, like, now, honestly, me as John Jagger, I don't like trash in raids. It's the worst part of raids. I hate it so much. That is true. But I look at what I do when I'm around trash on these characters, and then I think of a fight like Spoils of Pandaria, where we were explicitly told that only tanks were allowed to click boxes. So what did I do? I immediately started clicking boxes as the not tank rogue, because that's what, of course, that's what I do. And I don't know. I'm curious if anybody else out there in the entire world role plays in that way their character when they're actually in the game.
Well, you got to keep up appearances, right? And for you, you may have made those choices so long ago and became famous for them, or known that now you're keeping up appearances. Just like I levitate, you got to make sure as long as the damage isn't rolling, that the pet's out, the pug levitates on.
It's funny. I kind of do something similar. So, I'm on my monk now. It's my main, at least for this expansion, going around healing, having fun. I always try to be, calm and serene and everything like that. And being a raid leader and being really frustrated totally breaks that sometimes. But I do what I can. But any, battle pet that I have out is usually like, something that fits with that character. That's how I have it for all of my characters. They each have like specific pets that they use. I mean, there's some crossover just because, I might like a certain pet that I just got or something, but I do that. But even more so when I'm on my mage, I'm so freaking reckless. It's like, I throw fireballs, I make stuff blow up. I just want to see all the booms. So, like if I'm out in the world doing world quests or whatever, I take on whatever. I don't care. I die so many times on my mage versus my monk. I mean, partly because I can't heal myself, but I just I see something big. I'm like, ooh, I bet I can make that dead, and try to blow it up and everything. When I'm running around like in a group and stuff, I'm a little bit more restrained because I have things to I don't know. There have people who can yell at me for over pulling or something like that. But even so, I'm constantly trying to be as flashy and as much of a spectacle as I can, just throwing out fire and making things blow up and, making sure my living bomb is going off and things are blowing up this way and that way and throwing as many giant fireballs as I can. And I mean, part of that, of course, is the rotation and how you're supposed to play the mage, which thank God they've got it right this expansion. But it's just such a different feeling because I do have that headcanon that, I played her for almost my entire time in WoW until halfway through last expansion or something. So it's just ingrained in me of I'm a showman, I'm blowing shit up, and I'm making it look spectacular at the same time.
Well done. Before we kind of get out of here, I want to do one more pass around the round table. And I just want to kind of bring it back a little bit to cover both topics here. And I want to see, I'll start with you, Ben, because you're a host on this show, so I'll throw you under the bus first.
Yay!
Is there anything from Dungeons & Dragons, or even just tabletop role-playing, we keep saying D&D, but tabletop role-playing in general, that you would like to see in some form come to WoW, or that you have any idea that could be brought into the game?
You know what I would like, and I doubt this will ever work, but I would like to have more RP that you do as a character in the story. So instead of like, you go to a quest giver and it says talk to this person, and then there's a screen that pops up that has text from what that person says, and then you only have like one option of what to say. I want you to actually like type in a response. I want the tech to be there to kind of understand, is this more of a positive? Are they, treating me like dirt? Or, something like give them Siri, logic in answers so that whatever you type in, you're actually holding a conversation with this quest giver. I think something like that would be so cool and so much fun. In fact, did either of you do the like the 2 or 3 day balloon event that happened like a month or two ago? It was like one of the mini holidays.
No.
No.
Okay, it was great. So you go and you queue up, and then two other people queue up with you, and then you're in a balloon just floating over, taking a little tour from one place to another. And the person who's flying the balloon has, an entirely different personality from every other balloon person that's sending you somewhere. So the one that I was in, you had like they asked, okay, who would you essentially marry, death, kill, and they gave you like of the people in the balloon and stuff. So I was totally having a blast and playing along with it, and of course it didn't recognize anything that I was saying. There's a trivia question of like what's the motto of Suramar City or something like that, and it was an illusion. What is this or whatever it is? And so like I typed it in, they're like, "Oh, I'm sorry, you were close," and then they gave the answer that I gave. So I'm like, "Come on!" But I mean, just something so that you could just type in responses and role play that way. I think would be really cool to add to the game.
Awesome. Well, I'll go ahead and give Kyle a little more time to think on his answer again, because he's guest, and that's what you should do. But I will say for me, I want more unexpected. Like, that's always my thing. Like, they have been dipping their toes in it this expansion with, oh, here's a mysterious quest that people had to piece together and figure out. But at the end of the day, it ends up going on a website, and you just follow the steps. I want more, hey, we just randomly decided to cause an event to happen, or weird interactions like that one instance, and I can't think of the name right now, where you can poison the boss, or where there's a big masquerade party and the boss fight is figuring out who is the person that's the spy there, and you're getting clues from the other guests, and you have to walk up to him and be like, all right, they said he's wearing a red cape, he likes to read, and you're just trying to look at him and figure it out. Like, that stuff was really cool. I want to see that not just be contained in one instance. I want that in the world and in general. I want that to be entire quest lines and things like that.
That'd be cool. So Kyle,
Yes.
Europe.
Yeah. So mine, of course, would be to recapture, as I put it, my old pimpage. And I want that, like, and the drums are going, and the guys walk around huzzahing people with the arm grabs and slapping people on the side, and people are putting their armor really roughly and smacking each other in the helmets. What if there was a guild cart, and instead of summoning or being inside already when we start doing this stuff, you're outside of it, and everything's there for you to craft. You got to bring your supplies, of course, but that's where the alchemist is getting his potions ready, and something about being a part of that camp outside allows you maybe an extra potion, whatever the bonus is to balance it out. That encourages people to save their crafting for right before the raid, and they're enchanting and everything else right there with the guild. So everyone's being like, yeah, I got this now. Because my favorite thing about 5-man is you show up, you didn't beat it last week, and you go around, and everyone usually says something along the lines like, man, I got a new weapon this week. This should be easy. Cool, I got a new helmet. I finally got rid of my old belt. And you just really bask in that glow of everybody succeeding when you were apart, and now you're together, and it's time to kick butt. And if they could give me a solo version, maybe just a box to stand on with a banner next to me that says priest available, that would work too.
Yeah.
That's
cool.
Actually really cool.
I like that idea. One of the things, again, and I apologize, it's been nothing but EverQuest stories here tonight, but that's the game that I always think about with this, because it's the game where I always felt like they just gave us a world and said make your way in it, and as a result weird things happened. And I think the direction that WoW gives is nice and refreshing, but it sometimes impacts that. Because there was a time in EverQuest where every Saturday night me and a group of friends would go to the Dock Inn in Kinos. We would just sit in the inn and type out in Say stories. We would just tell stories to each other. And other players could come in and sit down and listen to them. And occasionally you'd get the troll that would sit down and just start like adding to it or whatever. But generally speaking, and it was really weird, people would just come in and sit down and just listen and just hang out for a bit and get drunk to get their drinking skill up. Because in EverQuest, of course, drinking was a skill you had to level up.
Oh, yeah.
And then they would wander out of the inn drunk and, wobbling back and forth as they walk out of the inn. And it was just a really, really cool moment that made that world feel alive and is part of what made that feel special. But, you can only do that in a world where people have a reason to go past these inns and a reason to be there and a reason to feel encouraged to do stuff like that. So, I don't know. I think more moments where you have reasons to gather, like what Kyle said, where like, oh, we're all going to craft and we're going to build this like little mini fair almost outside of an instance or somewhere where we can all just gather and do the things we got to do. Or even, we go on a raid and somebody needs to bring flasks, right? And right now the way it works, if I don't have flasks, which I don't, and somebody has them for the raid team, I'm like, guys, I need flasks. They come over to me, they give me the right click of shame, and then they trade me some flasks, and I have them. But if we were all out front and they could say, okay, well, I made these flasks, come up to me, and I'm essentially a vendor for the flasks, right-click them and buy them from me as if I'm a vendor, now it feels cool. Now it feels like, oh, I'm getting this directly from my guildmate who's right there in front of me.
And there's almost a shame associated with being there too early, right? You're outside the door and everyone's seeing your name on this guild list and like, oh, they're already there. Well, if they didn't have something better, we could just summon them. Go from your garrison, bro. They're overstoked where that guy could be getting set up for the day, like getting things rolling.
Two things I will say that mages don't want to go back to that fully because way back in the day, they had to constantly make water and food for everybody like an hour before raid started. Just sit there, create some before tables were a thing. And second, John, if you'd shown up on time, you could have pulled a flask out of the cauldron that I made.
Oh, cauldron, huh?
Ooh,
yeah.
Called out.
Fancy. Yeah, well, I was an hour late. You guys hadn't made any progress, so it was fine. I missed the unimportant hour.
You're not that wrong. And you know what, Kyle, Steeled On in the chat room did mention, and I totally forgot about this, but in Pandaria, noodle carts were a thing. So if you'd gone through the whole quest line, you can set up a noodle cart and people can get food from you. Although they didn't buy it and you didn't get money for it, which I always thought was a crime. But that's still cool. You know what? We need more noodle carts because those were fun.
Those were fun. I remember getting those for people. It felt like a big event. Like, you're getting a noodle cart. Finally.
And this is the good one. Eat my noodles.
Yeah, not the crappy noodle cart.
Yeah. Kyle, it has been an absolute blast having you on the show. Thank you very much for joining us.
Oh, thanks for having me on. This was awesome. I love talking about D&D. I could keep going, but well, we'll
save it for next time.
Point. Yeah. So, at some point it has to end.
We will definitely talk about it again at some point. Yes. In the meantime, though, where can people find you?
You can find me on AMove TV in Into the Nexus. You can also find me over at twitch.tv/Kyle Fergusson. Mostly Heroes of the Storm content. D&D is my special escape still, but is constantly being threatened to be taken online and shared with everybody, and I'm excited about that day, but the tech's not there yet.
It's getting close. One of these days.
One day, someone will get it.
Yeah. John, what about you? Where can people find you?
If you want to hear more from me, you can follow me on Twitter at John_Jagger, or you can check me out talking about Heroes of the Storm as well. Weird, we got a theme going right now. It's good. Feels good. And You can listen to that on Core,
Which
is the Heroes of the Storm show I do. You can find out more about that at heroesforyou.com. And finally, Ben.
Yes, John.
Tell the people where they can find you.
Well, if you want to listen to my Heroes of the Storm podcast, sorry. But I do another show with Aludra called Battle Pets. It's about battle pets in the World of Warcraft. As for me, you can find me on Twitter. I am at Ben the Mage. This show, however, Azeroth Roundtable, we're found on or at Azeroth RT. If you have any questions, comments, want to tell us your D&D stories, which we always love to hear, send those to azerothroundtable@gmail.com. And of course, all of our episodes are found on azerothroundtable.com, on iTunes, Stitcher, TuneIn, Alpha Geek Radio, and pretty much anywhere that, good or bad podcasts are found. I don't know why I had to put that qualifier in there.
There
but
you go.
Just, podcast overall. Just,
way to sell
Play
it
it
as...
safe, man. Internet's full of stuff.
Yeah,
Don't want to
exactly.
endorse something you don't know.
True. Well, we're where the good ones are.
Okay.
We're also where the bad
well
ones
done.
are. Yeah,
Good
it's the same thing, so it doesn't matter. But yeah,
I'm glad you've cleared that up for us.
glad I can help.
You've bought me plenty of time to talk about Patreon. Are we to that point yet? Did you finish
No, we're
it up?
totally there.
Oh,
That's
okay.
why I was buying you time.
Oh, I missed the whole point where it leads up to us talking about it. I did well. Hey, everybody, this show and this quality content. Let me say quality one more time. Quality content is made possible.
Makes it good, John.
It does. Is made possible by your hard-earned money. And we'd like to thank our newest patron, Aaron Matthews, who I'm going to say again in a minute when I thank the Murloc Club.
Remember, we're not doing the last names.
Dang it, now you gotta bleep it again.
Yeah, I bleeped it last week.
I'm bad at this. I apologize.
You're getting better.
They typed the whole name in. I read what's in front of me. I'm like Ron Burgundy. All right, so thank you to the Murloc Club, who I'm not going to use any full names on. Aaron M. Big mystery on who that is right now.
Well, bleep.
Simon and Haster, thank you for being part of the Murloc Club. Thank you to all our patrons. If you want to join them, patreon.com/AzerothRT.
Yep. Kyle, once again, thank you very much for joining us. Sometime I would love to play D&D with you.
You as well, and we shouldn't try to squeeze that into BlizzCon because that's insane, but
No.
my brain always wants to do it. It's like, we can just do it, right? We'll just, 5 hours.
We don't need to sleep.
Yeah, there we go. We just pull it from sleep. No problem.
Exactly. John, thanks for joining me again this week on Azeroth Roundtable. Everybody else, have a good night. I guess I could have left a window for you to say something in there.
No, you ended it. That's good.
Okay.
It's done. I mean, we're still streaming, so I always wonder when you, end on a note as if, we're about to be cut off, like I'm about to push the button and just end it, when technically the stream's still going. So you're like,
well, technically, I'm still recording too.
All right,
In fact,
everybody, good night. And then we're just still going.
And that's where I stop the podcast. I figure that works.
Yeah, that works.
Yeah. Seriously, Kyle, thank you very much for joining us. That was a lot of fun.
Oh, this was a lot of fun as well. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, you're awesome. I don't get to talk to you nearly as much as I would like to because you're one of the nicest people who I know.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
And I have hopefully what I think is a fun name for the title of this episode.
All right, what have you gone with?
MMORPDND.
Ooh.
It's really bad.
I know, that's why I love it.
I think we just invented a term. We did it.
Yeah.
Ben, so we're about to end this thing, but then we're gonna record another thing. Are we streaming that, or are we just recording it?
Because it is heavily spoilers and stuff, we should probably just record it.
That's a good
Because people like to just show up and be like, "Oh,
why did you say a spoiler out loud on your show that I jumped into?"
Yeah.
All right, that's a good call. So, all right, well, we have another show to record. Chat, we're gonna call it there for you all, and we're gonna thank you very much for joining us, and say that you're all beautiful people.
Beautiful people, the beautiful people."